This meeting is being live streamed. Got it.
Well, good morning and happy Saturday, everybody. Technology is a beast today. What the heck is going on around these parts?
I just want you to know that's the PG. That's the PG version of what she meant when she said technology is a beast. I just want y'all to know that.
You better tell them. Hey, y'all. I am sports mental health empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. Who's that guy? Y'all know who he is.
Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back. This is Ronnie Ransome. Good to see y'all all again. Man, hey, look, we were talking earlier. It was such good football on last week. Like, I'm talking about college football Saturday last week was amazing. Speaking of that, we had a huge upset in the D2 sports world last weekend. The Panthers of Virginia Union went all the way down to Valdosta, Georgia last week and upended the number 2 team in Division II, 45-40.
Timeout. Ronnie, put your House Talk pregame wallpaper up.
Oh, snap.
See how transparent we are, y'all? We make mistakes. We're human. We're human therapists.
Y'all didn't see that. We a little redirection. That's all.
I didn't catch it. I told you I was tired.
I feel you.
Long week.
I feel you. Well,
okay,
how are you today?
So y'all need to understand that Ronnie think he the boss of me. Like he telling y'all, he's my co-host and he's like my surrogate son. But he think he the boss of me. And he's been telling me for 3 years now to get black seed oil so that I don't have all this morning congestion. I swear, y'all, I do not have COVID. I don't. However, I woke up this morning feeling like somebody stuffed cotton up my nose. I feel like my nose is packed and I feel like my ears are packed. And then like somebody is just like, I don't know. I have so much sinus pressure in my head. It just feels like I have a sinus vice, just like I'm just nasally and ilky and I'm tired.
So hopefully,
that's how I am. Thank you for asking.
Hopefully you will listen today, and order this black seed.
You sent me the link. I'm gonna get it.
I sent it to you.
I'm gonna get it.
All right. I mean, hey, if you want to be Stuffy McStuff stuff, I mean, by all means, go ahead.
Stuffy McStuff stuff.
Yeah.
Stuffy McStuff stuff. That's a new one. That's a new nickname.
I'm trying to help you expel that mucus. Like, we're trying to help the Cowboys expel a win out of there. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. That kind of slipped out. My bad.
We were talking about Tom Brady and Giselle, whatever the heck her name is, before the show. Can we finish that conversation before we jump in?
Sure. Yeah.
All your life. Why you got to be ignorant your whole life? Focus.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Talking about Tom Brady. And we weren't talking about Tom Brady and the Dagburn Buccaneers beating up on my Cowboys. We were talking about his wife beating up on him. We were talking about Tom Brady in a systemic light.
And it's crazy because I bet Giselle was rooting for the Cowboys too last week, and y'all didn't do what she needed y'all to do. She needed, like Skip say, she needed 11 from heaven to do what he do best and touch Tom a little bit. So because Tom definitely said the next morning, like, they was out there hitting yesterday, like they was. So
Michael took it to him a couple times. He took it to him.
But now we were talking about how Giselle apparently gave Tom an ultimatum for this season, that this season is going to be his last season. I will say, I think Tom is a classic example of, we see it all the time, but normally when we see it, we see athletes who either didn't make it to the professional leagues or, injury kind of, took time from them and whatnot. We never really see it where, somebody makes it to this stage of their career where, I mean, believe it or not, like there's really people in the league like this year who weren't born when Tom Brady was first in the league. Like,
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
long he's been playing football.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine, that this transition that he knows is getting ready to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether this actual season is his last one, or for whatever earthly reason he decides to come back next year. I mean, hey, it's gonna be a transition, and I hope that he definitely, talks to his team and his support group, and definitely gets the right resources around him to help with this transition. Whether it's a sports psychologist, therapist, whatever the case may be, somebody that he can talk to. Because, I mean, obviously, I think it's clear to see that he's making it very well known that life after football, and I mean it. I tell people this all the time. Like, I mean, granted, I didn't make it to the professional leagues and whatnot, so I can't speak from that standard. But I mean, just being able to play football for as long as I did, and having a career that I was satisfied with. I mean, there's still nothing 8 years after I finished playing that gives me that same excitement that football did. I mean, and that's just being real. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I love being a therapist. I love working with people. There's other things I have interest in, but none of those things, it's kind of like that first love. Like, that very first love you
question
get.
Around that, Ronnie, because
I
just had an aha moment when you said that. When you think about other people that that have retired from non-athletic careers, there doesn't seem to be this massive difficulty in transitioning from one's work life to one's retired life, particularly within a mental health capacity. Why is it so different with sports that we see the introduction of all of these psychological issues when you all retire from sport versus somebody who was a CEO, CFO, or just a blue collar worker who delivered mail at the post office for 40 years or 30 years or 20 years? Why such a stark contrast in those retirement experiences, do you think? And this is not even the topic of today's show, but it's something y'all need to hear, so we're gonna talk about it real quick.
If I had to make a my best, guess towards it, I would probably say that, if you were the CEO of a company, or like, let's take somebody like, Jeff Bezos for you, because he just stepped down as CEO of Amazon last year, I believe. I mean, granted, he started Amazon from the ground up, in the garage, the whole, everybody knows that whole story and whatnot. And so I guess for him, he, one of the reasons he stepped down was because he has his other company, Blue Origins or Blue Moon or something like that, where, he has, supreme interest in, getting to the moon, getting people to the moon and whatnot. So I think for him, he found passion in something else. And another way to answer that question, to not get extremely too long-winded, I think one of the things that can be comparable to an athlete retiring from the sport and having such a hard transition will probably be maybe like a combat veteran. Like, if you ever talk to a combat veteran, not all of them, but some of them, the ones who, they were infantrymen, special forces, deployed several times and stuff like that. You hear a lot of them where that struggle to come back and be a civilian isn't because they, is being a civilian, and you've been a civilian your whole life, but that excitement, that adrenaline rush, that thrill of being so present and hyper focused on something, on a purpose, on a goal, on a mission at that moment, it's almost like it's an acute time frame, like a very small time frame. You can be a CEO of a company for 40 years and never get tired of it. Love waking up, going to do what you do every single day. But we know with sports, especially football, you have a very small, finite amount of time. And there's no guarantee on how long you have. For some people, you can be like Tom Brady and be blessed to play football literally your entire life. Like, literally your entire life almost. And then you have people like me who football was only a part of your life. And so I'll wrap it all up with this. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier in the week, and he asked me what my purpose was. And when I gave him my answer, he was like, I appreciated you giving that answer, because when I ask other, dudes, and I ask other, men who are career people, what their purpose is, more times than not, they tie their purpose to their job or their career.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think oftentimes when we see athletes, tie their purpose to their career or to their job and things like that, when you can no longer live in your purpose, you're like, well, what am I
now
doing?
What
this
do I
for?
have?
Like, yeah, like, everybody has to have a purpose for something. Like, they have to find purpose in something in order to keep going, because if you don't have a purpose to keep going, where do you go? Like,
Yeah,
you'll just be going in circles. So I think that's probably the biggest difference between, just a regular, 9-to-5 job, career, anything like that, compared to an athlete, where, a career, you can have your career 40, 50 years if you want to.
Yeah.
But as an athlete, your career is capped. Like, there will be a day you can't put on a helmet, shoulder pads, pants, and cleats and go out there and hit somebody at full speed. There will be a day that comes. There will be a day where you can't run down the basketball court and hit a layup on the other side against somebody. There will be a day where you can't hit the tennis ball over the thing. You might be able to do it in the senior citizen league and stuff like that, where there's no huge competition and billions of dollars on the line. But to do it at that level, at that time in your life, is literally like this.
Yeah.
Literally like that. So
Makes
if I had
sense.
to, I would say that was probably the biggest struggle for a lot of athletes. It was my struggle too. My purpose.
We're going to do a whole
of,
show on it, and I want to say it's after the first of the year is
probably,
when we do our show on retirement. And we actually have a former NFL player that's going to be the guest on that show to talk about that. So really excited to learn more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll definitely see how that. I would say the last thing to say on that, as far as Tom Brady goes, is let's see how their season goes to see if he starts to feel that pressure, because it's one thing to sit there and say it out loud, like, this is my last season. He didn't do that last year. He didn't say a word. He played the whole season, and then literally a week after they lost, boom, I'm retired. So I wonder if some point during this season, let's say they maybe hit, losing streak, or, they start, God forbid they, have some injuries pile up. I wonder if that reality will start to really set in and really be at the forefront of his mind, where it's like, damn, I really don't have time anymore. This is it. Like,
I'm tired. And you would think that even though,
but I don't think he's tired though.
He's great. Well, no. But here's the thing. I'm not saying that. I'm thinking about was it Chris Collinsworth that said, he looks in great shape the whole 9 yards, but at the end of the day, his bones are still 45 years old.
Oh, absolutely.
At the end of the day, his lungs are still 45 years old. At the end of the day, his heart is still 45 years old. And you can be in excellent shape. You can, but your biological clock is still ticking, and your organs know how old you really are.
Oh yeah. So I mean,
so internally,
the one thing is he's been, he's been saved by a lot of the NFL changes and rules, where outside of the injury he had back in 2009, he's never really missed any time from games. No. So that's one thing to his side, but
the pocket is his safe place.
Exactly. And he's definitely,
the pocket is his safe space. They don't let nobody get down.
No, he don't let nobody get to him either. So shoot. But no, we'll definitely circle back to that, because I think that's definitely an important conversation. And by that point, playoffs will be here and stuff like that. Right. So we can definitely see what's going on with that. But so y'all, we got a great topic lined up for y'all today. It's called Danger, People Pleasing in Sports. So have you ever wanted to impress someone so badly? Like, I'm talking about really, really bad, like that you're willing to do almost anything. Like, does it seem like impressing others is the goal above just about everything else in your life, including making good choices, being around being around positive people, positive influences, but that need to just have people like you, that need to have that acceptance, that need to have that, approval from others over yourself. That can be an issue. And especially when you're an athlete, because, when we talk about people pleasing in sports, and it's and people pleasing in sports is a little bit different than when we talk about people pleasing in general. And we're going to, break down the difference as we get going. But I think this is a really important topic, because The one thing that I will say about people pleasing is that, you know, what you allow to happen in your personal life will always oftentimes seep into, you know, your professional and career life as well.
Absolutely.
So, you know, if you're a people pleaser in your personal time, you know, it's not going to be hard to not be a people pleaser in, you know,
Yep.
your professional and you know, especially if you're an athlete in that type of realm, because,
Yeah.
you know, the one thing about being an athlete is like, you know, always making sure that you're available. You know,
Yeah.
the best position you can be in sports is having availability.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna talk about what that looks like and everything in a second. But Dr. Pitts, before we get started on that, did you have a mental health tip of the week this week?
Yeah, I do. I'll give you a quick one.
Okay.
And it ties in because interestingly enough, it's come up a lot in sessions this week. And here's what I say to my clients who, both my non-athletic and my athletic clients who find themselves stuck in this people-pleasing rut. First and foremost, Ronnie, life is not a popularity contest, despite what people might think. There are going to be people who don't like you. Everybody's not going to like you. And if you're honest with yourself, you don't like everybody. And I know this might sound like me being extra, but you know what? I don't care because life's not a popularity contest. And whether you like me or not is not
Right.
making a difference to me, right? But do you want to be associated with everybody and anybody who's ever tried to be friend or to be cool with you? Probably not, right? Realistically speaking, then why do you need everybody to like you? Why? Old people used to say back in the day, you don't hear too much now because you know the vernacular was a little different, but old people used to say back in the day, birds of a feather flock together, and if you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. You so
Oof.
pressed running around here worried about whether or not everybody's going to like you. And the reality of it is all company is not good company.
Mm-mm.
Everybody is not worthy of having access to you. And you're going to mess around and be guilty by association because you're so busy being concerned with, oh my gosh, well, what if they don't like me? What if they don't accept me? I've got abandonment issues. I've got rejection issues. Man, come on, stop that. Here's the thing. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to put it, as somebody say, I'm going to put the hay down where the goats can get it. Let me ask you this. If you're honestly and truthfully, Ronnie, if somebody is not a racist, why would they want to hang around a bunch of racist people? Why do you need those racist people to accept you? If you're not homophobic, why would you want people that are homophobic to accept you? People pleasing in many ways is connected to significant cognitive distortions that lead you to believe that acceptance by others is what you need or want in order to feel better about yourself. When the reality of it is, what you really need is to be self-accepting and to learn how to love yourself, whether other people accept or reject you or not. Because again, life is not a popularity contest. There will always be people like you. And if you want to exhaust yourself trying to get everybody to like you and everybody to accept you, you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble before it's all said and done. That's all I have.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I don't have a mental health tip of the week because I definitely want to, you know, share a lot of my thoughts and stuff on this topic, you know, in our deep dive and whatnot. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it.
Let's do
it. So, you know, you may have a friend, you know, who might, you know, put their needs to the side. You know, we always hear people say like, you know, I want to be known as that person who was always selfless and, you know, doing for others. And when people needed me, you know, I would come to their need. And, you know, when people needed assistance or advice or financial things, you know, they can call me, they can hit me up. And when you see somebody like that, you know, from the outside looking in, you might be like, that's a really good friend. Like, you know what? That's
so noble. Just so noble.
Yeah. I'm like, man, you're very dependable. I appreciate that. The issue is, though, is that, you know, there's always, with everything is good in moderation. You know, everything is good in moderation. However, when we talk about people pleasing, you know, people pleasers need to please others for reasons that may include, the fear of rejection, insecurities that they might not have addressed or might not acknowledge, the need to be well liked, the need to be involved in others. And when you have a situation like this, for example, if somebody has a fear of abandonment, right? People pleasing might look like, if this person is disrespectful towards you or talks, a certain kind of way to you, you might overlook that or bypass that because it's like, well, at least they're engaging with me, at least they're talking to me, and maybe if I do exactly what they say, how they say it, they'll still be around me because I can't not have you in my life. I'd rather have a piece of you than none of you.
Right.
If you're willing to give me a piece of you, I'm good with that. I can take that because that means I'm not alone. And or let's say, for example, you have somebody who struggles with a fear of failure, fear of falling, having setbacks and failures and missteps and stuff like that. Well, people pleasing might look like where, for example, if you're working on a group project or something, person who has a fear of failure working in a group project might be the person who'd be like, all right, look, I'm gonna set up the board, I'm gonna set up the poster board, I'm gonna get all the materials. Look, I just need you to work on this. I'll take care of all of this. And then what happens is when the other group members turn their stuff in and they finally look at the final project, none of the stuff is on there.
Right.
None of it. They're looking at this board like, who made this board? Like, who is this? Oh, well, I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. I know y'all did
everything was perfect. It got to be perfect. It got to be perfect.
I really appreciated everything that I was up all night. I was concerned. I was just wanted to make sure everything looked good for our project because we cannot afford to fail. You can't afford to fail, what I mean? But so when we see these things happen, like I said, from the outside looking in, it can look, innocent. It can look, chivalrous. If you're a dude, it can look honorable. All those things. But for somebody who's a people pleaser, on the inside of them, how they might be feeling mentally exhausted, physically drained, tired, helpless, hopeless. They might feel a constant urge to never be able to rest or never be able to feel comfortable because I have to always think about, well, when they called me and I said I can't talk right now and they just hung the phone up like, okay, dang, like maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I need to call them back and talk to them because like that wasn't right of me. I need to call them back because maybe they think I'm being mean now. I wasn't trying to be mean. I just needed a time to myself. Anytime you try to do for yourself, automatically feel guilty. The thought of doing something for yourself over somebody else is just unfathomable to you. What are some other traits that somebody who might be a people pleaser might look like? They might have a low self-worth, or otherwise they might, in other words, their automatic thoughts might be that I'm not competent enough or I'm not worthy enough. They accommodate everybody else's needs. They undermine their own needs. In other words, they self-sabotage.
Yep. That's a big one.
And when we talk about self-sabotaging, typically, from what I've seen, people pleasers who have a strong fear of failure, they will sabotage their own needs because the thought of putting in all my effort, the thought of things doing everything right and it not going right for me, I can't take that type of setback. I can't take that type of failure because that means that I didn't control enough things in the moment to make sure this didn't happen. So if I know I can't control everything and the outcome, let me go ahead and just ruin it myself. What might that look like though? What might that look like for somebody who's self-sabotaging as an athlete? You might skip workouts. You might not go to the training room and get treatment. You might not study that film that coach put on Huddle or on 24/7 Sports. You might not look at that film. You might not read the scouting report on the D tackle that is lined up in front of you the following week. You might not look at the blitz coverages and the coverage packages that they might have, that the coaches might have took their time to prepare for you. All because your fear of, what if I go out there and I mess the snap up? Or what if I go out there and I read the wrong read and I throw an interception? Well, I can't take that type of failure because if I fail, Well, coach is gonna look at me like I can't depend on him. I can't trust him. He's a good dude, but I can't trust him in the game. Well, I can't have coach thinking about me like that. But if I don't try, then he can't disappoint me. I've already disappointed myself. I can take disappointing myself, but I can't have a coach making me feel disappointed. I can't have the game making me feel disappointed. Sometimes it can be too agreeable. They just agree to everything. For example, let's say, you're a star quarterback. And we see this a lot. Especially with our Black athletes. Let's say you're a good quarterback, right? Maybe not great, but good. Need some work. Ain't never really had a coach really teach you to find techniques, to find motor skills and stuff like that of a quarterback. Maybe need to learn how to read coverages a little bit better, but you got the tangible skills.
You have potential.
But let's say, for example, you have a low sense of self-worth. And so a coach comes up to you and said, hey, look, man, hey, I'll be real with you, man. We want to give you this scholarship, but we don't know if quarterback is the position we really want you at. We think you're really good, think you're really smart, got a good head on your shoulder. You got a good future, man. You can really go a long ways. You can go real far. Your college career can be real prosperous and fruitful. But we're thinking that maybe if you would play receiver, or maybe if you switch to the other side of the ball and play. I know you played safety in high school, right? Yeah, you played a little bit of safety sophomore and junior year. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, hey, we want to give you the scholarship. We love you. We want you to be a part of this team. Now, sometimes athlete might ask themselves, like, dang, like even the coach don't even believe I'm a good enough quarterback. I really want to go to school. I really want this scholarship. I can't pay for school by myself.
Right.
All right, coach. You know what, coach? I'll play whatever you want me to play. How many times do you hear kids say, coach, I'll play whatever you want me to play just to get on the team?
Yeah.
And while what I will say, in some instances, that is necessary, especially when you get to like the NFL and stuff. Hey, you gotta get it in.
Yeah.
But what happens if this is an all too common thing?
Right.
What happens if a coach also gets you to say, hey, wait, look, we're bringing in this guy, a transfer dude, hey, we like you and everything, but I think we're gonna split reps with you and him at the safety position. You let you get the first drive, let him get the second series, and see how things go. All right, coach. Yeah, that's fine. And everything. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. The only time you feel value is when you comply with others. You only feel like you're a good person. You only feel like you're a great leader, a great listener, a great teammate when you do what everybody else says to do.
I want to throw a monkey wrench in that.
Go ahead,
because when you were talking about that, when you first started sharing all this, what came to mind is you expressed it at the end, and I want to piggyback on that because I actually just had this happen with a client earlier this week. Ronnie, what about those times when, and I don't know if it's frequent or few and far between because it seems a little odd, but I know it happens because I'm working with somebody that was doing it. When you're such a people pleaser in your athletic play that you dim your light and don't bring your A game because you're so busy trying to impress some of your teammates that you don't want them to think that you're showboating or try to outshine them. So you fall back a little bit and don't perform at the level that you're truly capable of performing because you've got this idea, you've got this internal negative narrative that, oh, if I bust it out, oh, they gonna think I'm showing off. Oh, they gonna think that I'm trying to get in good with the coaches. Oh, they think that, that I think that I'm better than them. What about that narrative? Because I'm actually seeing that with some of my, not a lot of my cases, but I'm seeing that show up in some of my clients. And I'm like, okay, we got to really, really, really peel back the layers on this. Cause you saying you want to go to the league, but how you going to do that if you falling back and dimming your light? What is going on right now?
I would say in a situation like that, there's definitely some underlying, maybe some underlying negative automatic thoughts that are going on
Yeah,
there because
yeah, no doubt.
how I think when we broached this topic of people pleasing in sports, when I first thought about it, I was like, I mean, you really got to be like, to people please in sports, it's almost kind of like you are okay with almost sometimes just complacent mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to think, how can I say it in the
In a
least
PC
insensitive way?
way. Some
Yeah,
people struggle.
because my thing is like, to your point, like I think that's unfortunate, that somebody would feel like, because I'm such a good athlete around my teammates that I have to tail back how good I am to make them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that mindset. I can let you know, I didn't possess that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, my mindset was the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to embarrass you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just me. I mean,
But you're confident though. So when you think about
I will say that. Well, I will say this though. Now, part of it was confidence, but I didn't always have that confidence. Like honestly, what used to really be enough motivation for me? Don't get put on my ass. Like that was enough motivation for me to at least compete. Like when I was in Little League, Little League football, I mean, now Little League football now is way, way, way
right.
more.
Little League football now is freaking religion too.
Yeah, like I mean, now when I played Little League, we used to have a lot of fans there and stuff like that. And our games used to be really intense and whatnot. But I'm more so speaking from the fact of, the pressure these kids are under at the Little League leagues, especially with travel ball and stuff like that. Like, I would say my confidence came from, like, once I realized that I actually I liked football. Because I always tell people, my first year playing football when I was 8, I was terrible. I had no idea what I was doing. I was getting knocked all over and stuff, and I just didn't know what I was doing. But when I came out there my second year, it clicked. And then when I started seeing now I will say this though, when I look at it now, and I know I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but to answer your question, if I had to be objective about some of my behaviors, like one of the other motivating factors I used to have, especially when I would go in, like when I got to college and stuff, like I had a goal, like as long as the coach didn't call my name, I was good. Like my goal for practice was to not get cursed out by the coach. Like, and I would do whatever that looked like. So it's like to answer the question in this topic, it's like the reason that would be like my motivating factor is because it's like I used to feel like if you yelled at me, then I've disappointed you, I've done something wrong. So now you might not view me in a favorable light because once again, now I'm like, well, then you might not be able to depend on me. So, but how that manifested on the field, it was like, I made sure I knew all the plays. Like I made sure I knew all the blocking assignments. I made sure I knew all the audibles where everybody had to go, all of that. Like I knew all of that for the entire offensive line. Granted, as part of my job as a center, but once again, like that wasn't, knowing everything wasn't something that I sought out to do because I was interested in knowing everybody else's job. Hell, I just wanted to make sure I knew my job before I knew everybody else's. But when I saw that knowing everybody else's job, coaches like, I can depend on them, I can trust them. And like, I promise you, like I probably only got yelled in practice probably like maybe like 2 or 3 times in a 4-year career.
Does that not getting yelled at by the coach, are there times, Ronnie, when that trickles over into players sucking up to the coach or coaches?
At times it can, yeah.
Is that a real thing?
Oh yeah, I think Um, I don't know about sucking up to the coach or like, in other words, like kissing their butt. But what I will say is that's a good one. That's a good one. Because I don't know. I don't know because like I'm trying to think of like examples of like what that would look like because for example, like I guess the way you could look at like sucking up is almost like I guess almost like being the leader of the team in a sense. Like you unequivocally assume the responsibility of your team and like you will be the for example, like Tom Brady. We're bringing up Tom Brady again. I'm not going to say that Tom Brady was a suck up to Coach Belichick. I don't think he had to suck up to Belichick. But what I will say is that their dynamic, their relationship was in a way where, and you've heard former players say this, where like Bill could rip Tom Brady in a meeting in front of everybody. They're talking about like rip him to shreds like he's a first year rookie quarterback who just threw 4 interceptions in a game. Would rip Tom Brady in front of the team. Tom would take it. Argue, wouldn't say anything back, would take it. And then go tell the other players, like, hey, come on, man, coach is just, being hard on us. We just got to do what we got to do, and, everything will be fine. I don't know if that would necessarily qualify as people-pleasing, more so as Belichick realized that my coaching style does not work for everybody. It's very in your face. It's very aggressive. It's very,
in your face.
Yeah. And
belittling, degrading, and demeaning at times.
Very much so. But I need somebody with stature who can take that, and then their behaviors after that are what I want the rest of the team to follow. Because if I can chew out this great player, and he don't argue back with me, he don't look at me like, who the F are you? Who are you talking to? And he goes out there and busts his butt, works hard, stays late, studies film, and goes out there and performs on Sundays, then nobody else can say anything. So I don't know if that's people pleasing from Tom Brady's perspective, more so of as understanding the role in which he chose to take.
So when you look at sports at every level, whether we're looking at little league sports or high school and collegiate level, is it reasonable then to suggest that there's a thin line between people pleasing and leadership?
I think you could say that. I think you could say, because I think sports is probably the one place that I think as you get up, when you get to college and you get to the professional leagues, I think people pleasing doesn't work in your favor. And I think the competitiveness kind of weeds that out, because it's like at the NFL, at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses.
Right.
And we've seen so many times that is what have you done for me lately? Yeah, you might have been great 4 years ago. Like, for example, I'm not bringing this up in a malicious way.
Yes, you are. But go ahead. What you gonna say about my quarterback? How he looks now is not how he looked in 2016 when he took over Tony Romo.
It's not about him. It's not about him this time. I promise. It's about his other boy, Ezekiel. Hopefully this makes sense to our listeners out there. Zeke's first 3 years, by all accounts, best running back in the NFL, and it won't even close. But we've seen since he got that money, and also, the running back position is, it's a brutal position. Like you get beat up, and if you have well over 300 touches a year, you're gonna get touched a lot, and it ain't gonna feel good. So we've seen this steady decline go down and down. And you've heard the rumbles, you've heard the thing people say, like, all right, I think this is what, year 6 or 7. I think this is year 7 for Zeke, right?
They came in 2016.
Yeah, so I think this is technically year 7.
Seventh season.
So one might start to ask like, well, Zeke, you ain't been putting up the numbers, like you have been. And I think at that level, that's where that line is drawn as like, well, in theory, that line is drawn because we've also seen where teams will hold on to a player too long because they're a good guy, because they're a good teammate and stuff like that.
Right,
and they'll hold on to them too long, but then the rest of the team suffers.
Right.
So I'm glad we talked about this topic because now that I'm really, really like thinking about it, it's like I think you wholeheartedly you can be a people pleaser in sports, absolutely. But I think the higher levels you go up, it starts to weed out because there's other factors that come into play where you being a good guy and a good teammate and stuff like that, that can only last for so long. In college, I mean, you only get 4 to 5 years. So, I mean, you can kind of like, you can just kind of like, skate, you kind of skate along. When you get to the professional levels, hey, look, man, we like you. You've been great here, but
you didn't earn this money.
Yeah, we can't help you no more. And so I think now, if you are a people pleaser and you've used sports as a catalyst, we talked about purpose earlier. If sports has been your purpose and that's where you found meaning and stuff like that. I think what you can find is like when you go through that period of not having a specific outline defined purpose,
got to identify your priorities.
Exactly. When you don't have priorities, you cling to anything.
Right. Oh, that's good.
You will search for anything for meaning. Because you're just like, I naturally, just genetically, we are purpose driven.
Right. If you so Ronnie,
go ahead.
I was going to ask you. So then that in and of itself may be an explanation for, and I know we alluded to it earlier, but you just said it more clearly now. So maybe that's why we see this escalation, if you will, in mental health issues upon retirement, or when there's a career-ending injury or something like that, because one's purpose is tied to athletic play. Literally, it's like, this is all I have. So now what do I do? And one of the things that we want you to know is you got to realize that you have a choice. There is life beyond sports. And that's probably hard to hear. But again, one of the things that can be truly beneficial is seeing a Ronnie, is seeing a Dr. Pitts, is seeing a mental health practitioner that can help you, because whether it's my athletic clients or my non-athletic clients, it's interesting that I hear a lot of people say they have no idea what their purpose is, right? It's like my husband tells me, he was like, babe, you're the exception to the rule. He was like, you've known what your purpose in life was since you were a little kid. He said, but that's not everyone's story, right? And I was like, no. It's like, I mean, obviously I know that it's not, but there are people that can support you in helping you to find out what your purpose is beyond your athletic play, because having a greater understanding of what your purpose is within the realm of your athletic performance, but also beyond athletic play, can be instrumental in helping you to be proactive in addressing any mental health issues that may arise, because you're like, oh crap, now what, oh goodness gracious.
And I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to go over this also in reference to this topic, because one of the things that we know that people pleasing is a trauma response. It's a coping, it's a maladaptive coping mechanism, because it comes from a place of, like, once again, you have low self-worth, you have insecurities, you have poor boundary setting and things like that. So when your feelings haven't been validated in a light, and you don't understand being safe and secure, and first of all in your own skin, and then the people around you, you start to look for those things. And so I found this chart, and I wanted to go over it real quick just for our listeners out there, to kind of put this in perspective for you, because we've all heard of fight or flight, the fight or flight systems and stuff like that. But I found this chart, and I thought it was really cool because it breaks it down even more. And so we know about fight or flight trauma responses, but there's two other categories that we don't really highlight a lot either. We have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So fawn and fawn is so fawn and flight are very similar, but they kind of have different responses. So for somebody who has a flight trauma response, they might be a workaholic, they might be an overthinker, they might have excessive anxiety, um, they might have OCD or difficulty sitting still, they might have a perfectionist mindset, they might be hyperactive, or they might be sad when they're by themselves. A fight trauma response is anger outbursts, sometimes being quote unquote the bully, explosive behavior, irritability, judgment, self-harm. Then we have freeze. So freeze is when you have difficulty making decisions, feeling stuck, disassociation and isolating, feeling numb, shutting down, exhaustion, and sleeps a lot. And then we have fawn. Fawn is people pleasers, feeling overwhelmed, no boundaries, a lack of identity, codependent, appeasing, and self-critical. So when we think about these trauma responses, and so trauma responses, these maladaptive trauma responses happen when we perceive a traumatic event or a series of traumatic events, and we don't have a chance to process those events in a healthy manner or in a safe manner to where we can understand the realities of those situations. Because when we don't address those realities of those situations, we're left to solve those within our mind. And we've talked about it before. And what do we know? Yeah, like our mind has a lot of thoughts. And I find myself saying this to people all the time. You know, our thoughts trigger feelings, which trigger action or inaction in a nutshell. And I've talked about that before. But when we experience a lot of trauma and we experience a series of traumatic events over and over again, it literally rewires our brain. It rewires how we respond to these situations in adverse situations. So a lot of these situations that we find ourselves in our personal lives, you can find yourself in a situation in the middle of a game. So for example, if you have a freeze trauma response mindset to adversity and situations, let's say, for example, 2-minute drill, down by 4, 90 seconds left, one timeout, you on your own 25.
Yeah.
You know you gotta get down the field. You down by 4, so field goal ain't gonna work.
Right.
Let's say, for example, you get a first down. Next thing you know, penalty, boom, 10-yard holding penalty. Now you got to come back. Now, as the clock starts to run down, you start to feel the pressure. You start, start to get those physical responses. Adrenaline starts pumping, heart starts racing. But if you have a freeze trauma response mindset, the magnitude of that moment might make it hard for you to make decisions in real time. So if you're a quarterback in that situation and you have a fawn trauma response to situations like that, you might have a hard time deciding, reading the coverage in real time and making a decision.
Why does this sound like a game that I've seen? Go ahead. Don't say nothing smart. But I'm saying it sounds so familiar. It sounds like a game from last season that just is like right here. But go ahead.
I mean, hey.
Whatever. Go ahead.
If the cleat fits, put it on.
Go ahead, man, because we got to go over these here.
Oh yeah. So I say all that to say I wanted to bring up those trauma responses because like I said, we all know about fight or flight, but freeze and fawn are really important too, because a lot of times when a situation happens, and whether it's traumatic or not, when a flashpoint situation happens, some will run, some rebel, some freeze up, and then some give in.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, when situations come up, when adverse situations come up, when what we consider traumatic situations come up, are you going to run from it? Are you going to stand against it? Are you going to freeze up in the moment? Or are you going to give in? Because that's important. Because if you do that in your personal life, if you find yourself in the middle of a game, middle of a practice, middle of a workout session, and something happens, how do you respond to that? If a coach yells at you in the weight room because you've taken too much time in between sets, do you run from that coach, run to the other side and hide? Do you get mad and go, tear the weights up? Do you freeze up and look like, what do I do now? Or do you give in, oh, I'm so sorry, coach, my bad, I got you. Be mindful of that, because that can carry over. And in sports, you have to know when to shut that off and like, hey, I gotta do what's best for me in this moment. my team is dependent on me. So I got to do what's best for me. Despite everything else, I got to do what's best for me. So Dr. Pitts, let's go ahead and close us off with that, and then we'll get into these.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just give you these bullet point tips real quick, and then I got a shout out that I want to do based on something I read somewhere and I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. I should have got it and saw it in passing, whatever. So when you think about tips to stop people pleasing in sports or outside of your athletic play, you really do. We touched on it a minute ago. You have to realize that you do have choices. You absolutely positively have choices. And it reminds me of a guest that we had on at the end of last season that was talking about how he had sustained an injury and he walked away. He walked away from the league because what was being asked of him surpassed what he was willing to do based upon his own value system, based upon his own beliefs, where athletic play was concerned as it related to his overall mental and physical well-being. You also, as Ronnie said, you have to identify your priorities, right? You need to know. So we use Tom Brady as that example, right? It's like your love for football, your family. And there will come a time, undoubtedly, where folks will give you an ultimatum, right? You have to be able to prioritize and decide, what your limit is. And then piggybacking on that, there has to be boundaries. There absolutely positively have to be boundaries set, because if not, you're going to find yourself giving to the point of depletion, overstaying your welcome, in essence, really eroding your own sense of self and your overall physical and mental well-being. You have to set a time limit. You got to know when it's time to, what's that song by Kenny Rogers? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. You got to know when to stop. You really do, right? You have to know when to walk away. You have to
count your
money
right. Sitting at the table.
Right. You have to know when to walk away, because you can mess around. And I'll tell anybody knows I have the tremendous amount of respect for Tom Brady and the Aaron Rodgers of the world and so many other great athletes that have played this game. But when it's over, it's over. And my concern is always that when they surpass their time limit, what ends up happening if you have a life-altering injury that you did not have to experience had you just sat down? There's no one to sit down.
You know who got that? You know who got that life lesson? Well, not he didn't get it, but he definitely got it. You remember when Brett Favre, that Saints game in his NFC Championship, the Bounty Gate game?
Oh yeah.
When they about killed Brett Favre out there, I'm talking about they about killed that man.
Yeah, he's under investigation for some stuff. That's another show.
Oh, he got to go sit down in timeout for a while for that one.
Yeah. So the other thing too is you have to consider, if you're being manipulated in any way, shape, form, or fashion because of your tendency to be a people pleaser, both in and out of sport. So what I want to do real quick, Ronnie, I read somewhere and I couldn't find it. I don't always, when I'm doing research and stuff, I don't always print stuff out. I'm like, oh, I'm going to remember it. So apparently Deion Sanders' son, through his name, image, and likeness revenue, gave $30,000 to his teammates or something like that. I believe I read that.
Yeah, he got them. He got them $500 gift cards, I think.
Yeah, he which was, he didn't have to do it. So just
that's very nice.
Wanted to acknowledge that. And then it was something else that happened that I wanted to highlight, but I don't remember what it was. So, well, I'll remember it next week. All right, Ronnie, how bad did we do last week? How bad did I do last week with these?
Oh, all right, because I was gonna say, you said how we. I don't speak French. I don't know.
What's the scores, man? Come on.
So after last week, Dr. Pitts, your record for last week was 3-7.
Mm-hmm.
My record was 7-3.
Mm-hmm.
So for the season, your record is sitting at 8-12.
Mm-hmm.
And my record is sitting at 15-5.
Mm-hmm.
And since we haven't had another guest for last week, Chris's record of 5-5 still stands as the highest for our guest for the season. So let's get into these week 3 games. Now we got 4 classic games on the schedule this week. Our first classic game we have is where we at? Our first one is the W.C. Gordon Classic, featuring Jackson State versus Grambling State in Jackson, Mississippi today at 1. So
Jackson State.
Taking Jackson State. All right, there's you. I'm taking the I forgot what their mascot is, but I'm taking Jackson State too. All right. The next one we have the Lois Cruz Classic between Alabama A&M versus Austin P in Huntsville, Alabama today. Who you taking? Now, Alabama A&M got the doors blown off them last week by Troy.
Who were they playing?
They played Troy last week.
But who are they playing this week?
They play Austin P. Now, I don't know anything about Austin P. But
I don't either.
But I don't feel too confident in Alabama A&M after what I saw last week. So I'm gonna go with
Austin. I don't know nothing about them, but if Alabama's playing like trash,
I'm
enough of that in my life right now.
I'm gonna go with this one.
I got enough.
Next, we got the HBCU New York City Football Classic taking place at MetLife Stadium today at 3 p.m. between the Bison of Howard University, the non-real HU, versus the Good Brothers of Morehouse College. Who you taking?
Morehouse.
Morehouse? Do you want Morehouse, though? That's the question.
So crazy.
I'm going to take Morehouse as well. All right. And then, actually, this is in your neck of the woods today.
Prairie View playing somebody?
Football showdown between Southern University versus Texas Southern, taking place in Arlington, Texas at 4 p.m. today. Who you got?
Who is it? It's
Southern versus Texas Southern.
Texas.
Texas says TSU?
Yeah.
Because you got Southern, but then you got Texas Southern. You ain't Southern until you've been to Texas.
Yeah,
Southern.
I'm taking TSU.
All right. All right, next one, we got the Battle of the Bay between the real HU, Hampton University, versus Lil State, Norfolk State University today. So who you got? You going with the Spartans or the Pirates?
I'm gonna go with Norfolk.
I should take you out this meeting just because you said that. I can't believe it. Next game, we got the Rams of Winston-Salem versus the Pirates of not East Carolina, Lord,
Eastern Shore.
No, Elizabeth City. I'm over here talking about some damn ECU. Elizabeth City versus Winston-Salem. I believe Winston-Salem actually beat Central State last week. No, I'm sorry, not Winston-Salem. Lincoln beat Central State last week, actually. But Winston-Salem lost, and I believe Elizabeth City lost last week, too. So both coming off a losing week, so somebody wants to rebound with a W today.
I'm going with Elizabeth City.
Elizabeth City? All right. I'm going to go with Winston. I'll do Winston this one time. All right. The Bulldogs of Bowie State versus Shaw University.
Bowie.
I can't have a giveaway pick this week, so I'm gonna go with Bowie too.
So stupid.
We got them in 24. We got them in 3 weeks. I'll be there. Can't wait. Calling Jared every day that week. Be there. All right, our next game is Clark Atlanta versus Lane.
Clark.
All right, I'm taking Clark too. All right, we got the Trojans of Virginia State versus St. Aug's today.
Virginia State.
You better ask that names, man. And last but not least, we have Fayetteville versus Lincoln.
Which Lincoln?
Lincoln, Pennsylvania. The Tiger. I ain't gonna
They
lie.
be good.
No, but if we,
You're so freaking stupid.
no, but I will say this though, their uniforms. Oh my God, they have by far they have
the best uniform.
the best uniform in the CIAA by far. Probably
Well,
the
who
best.
they playing?
They're playing Fayetteville State.
I'm going with Fayetteville. Come on, man. We out of time.
I'm going with Fayetteville too because
said,
Fayetteville.
no.
Yeah, nah. That's probably gonna be the only win they get was last week. But hey, their uniforms, they will win the uniform matchup every week, and it's not even close. Their uniforms are amazing, and they got this they got the metallic orange helmet with the lion on. Nice. Nice.
Come on, close us out, man. We out of time.
All right, y'all. We out of time. But look, enjoy some good football today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation. Be back with us next week, same time, same place. And we'll see how bad Dr. Pitts lost in these picks again next week. And look, y'all, this Eagles jersey is going to happen. It's going to happen.
Bye, y'all.
Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.